Welcome, comrades. Liberals, social democrats, and fake leftists everywhere in the United States are shaking in their boots right now with the emergence of the American Communist Party. This is something that has just dropped a couple days ago. I don't know if you're an American and you've been living under a rock, maybe you haven't seen it, but it's a party that's been trending on Twitter for some time as well, and it's funny, there were even memes that Xi Jinping endorsed the party itself, but I don't think there was truth to that. Maybe there is, I'm not sure, but that'd be pretty cool if the Chinese Communist Party did indeed endorse the American Communist Party. But it's really, I think, a good sign. I know there's been a lot of criticism around the internet. Obviously, whatever new thing that happens within the communist community, the communist movement in the West, anything maverick style, anything that people try that has a potential of being somewhat productive anything that goes against the grain of this identity politics nonsense that we've seen since the fall of the Soviet Union dominate the left, focuses on all of these different things that divide people rather than the most important thing and the one thing we all have in common, and that's been the fact that we're all part of the working class. Whenever someone on the left tries to organize something that goes against that sort of dogma that has infected the left, the sort of the identity politics, the swamp that's become the contemporary left, unfortunately. And I'm not saying the people in it. There are a lot of great comrades that I have that are part of the left. And there's tons of promising comrades who are in multiple different communist organizations in the West, but are disillusioned or have been disillusioned for the longest time, especially in the Communist Party USA. And that's where I'm going to begin this live stream, to lead up into the American Communist Party, its emergence, to lead into the significance of it, who's leading it, who's behind it, and what we can expect from it in the future. But to begin here, like I said, I'm going to start with a little bit of the history of the Communist Party of the United States of America. Because the Communist Party really meant something very different back in the first half of the 20th century than it does now. Right? The Communist Party of the United States of America was a leading party of the working class throughout the first half of the 20th century. It was a vehicle through which, for example, Southern blacks took up arms and fought Jim Crow after the Reconstruction period and the revival of the sort of, I guess you could say, fascist Southern racist regime that was there. At its peak, the Communist Party of the United States of America, in the United States, at its peak it had around 70,000 super active card-carrying members of the organization. These were people who were all throughout the working class movement, the trade union movement. They were involved in the fiercest flashpoints of class struggle that have taken place in the United States. The kind of class struggle we saw in Harlan County, the kind of class struggle we saw, like I said, against Jim Crow in the South, the kind of class struggle we saw in the Haymarket riot, for example, when workers were protesting for an 8-hour workday, right? The Communist Party was connected to that. And this is a party that had a political platform, right, that was not focusing on the LGBT movement. It supported equal rights for women, of course, but it didn't involve itself with liberal feminism or some sort of idea that could be compared to the contemporary ideology of intersectionality that focuses special attention on all of the differences that there are between people so that we can bicker about who's more oppressed than the other person based on this long list of potential things that we could say are oppressive. They supported black liberation, but not in a sort of segregationist way that we see a lot of liberals nowadays calling for, where the irony of a lot of people that are involved with a lot of liberals that are involved with the Black Lives Matter movement is that they're calling essentially for contemporary segregation from white people. By the way, segregation was a liberal program when it was actually instituted in the South. And like I'm basically saying right now, the point I'm trying to get to is that the Communist Party at its height of success was not focusing on what divided us, but it focused on the fact that we're all working class. The number one unifying factor of all the people that this party sought to represent was the fact that we're all workers and we're all exploited by the capitalist class. And everyone who's involved in this party is someone who wants to do something about that. That was when the Communist Party was at its best, at its height. Throughout the 1930s, really, and during World War II. Now, we look at the CPUSA, and anyone who's worth their weight in salt on the left, just the minute they hear CPUSA, they think it's a joke, right? Either that, or they're a promising comrade who joins the CPUSA thinking, well, it's the Communist Party USA, it's... there's nothing better, this is all we got, right? But let's be honest here. This is a defunct party with no future. The way the Communist Party USA is right now. It's a defunct party with no future. It supports Democrats, officially. It's a communist party that supports Democrats. As I'm going to mention later about the recent convention that they had, it's got a leadership that doesn't follow its own rules. And let's just, for 1 second, remember that the former General Secretary of the Communist Party USA was Sam Webb, right, after the fall of the Soviet Union. Sam Webb, this guy's a moron, okay? This guy, first of all, now he's a card-carrying member of the Democratic Party. And if you, I don't even know where to start with this guy, but that's not the point of this live stream. But if you want to learn about Sam Webb, what I suggest you do is go on YouTube and look up Glenn Beck interview with Communist Party. Obviously, Glenn Beck is a super old name. A lot of people think that that's like Stone Age media already. That's like in the 2000s that this interview took place. But watch that interview with Glenn Beck and Sam Webb, and you'll get an understanding of just how cringe this guy was and just how horribly uneducated he is when it comes to communism. He doesn't even know that the Nazi Party was called the National Socialist Party, right? Glenn Beck tries to catch him in this trap of saying that, communists were like the Nazis because the Nazi Party was called National Socialist Party, right? Any educated communist would be able to rebuttal that with a number of different things that explain why the Nazis had nothing in common with the communists. First of all of their propaganda and their entire intent was to smash communism. Communists were put in concentration camps in Germany even before the Jews were put in concentration camps. They were the first ones to go because they were the only ones fighting the Nazis at that time. I mean, that's not to mention Western capital, right, funded the emergence of the Nazis as well. But that's, this is all stuff that a normal communist who is half-educated can say on an interview with some crazy right-winger. And Sam Webb doesn't even know that. He's just like, I don't even know how this guy came to power in the Communist Party of the United States of America. It's insulting to the legacy of the Communist Party, right? But now, the current General Secretary of the CPUSA is no better, okay? I'm going to read you some takeaways from an article he wrote back in 2008. This article is called this article is called "The 10 Worst and Best Ideas of Marxism." I'm just going to go through the ones that he says are the worst, okay? I'm going to go through the main ones. There are some, he gives 10, but I'm just going to go through the ones that really, really stuck with me when I read this ridiculous article, right? Number 1, dictatorship of the proletariat. That to the General Secretary of the Communist Party, Joe Sims, is one of the worst ideas that Marxism ever came up with, right? The dictatorship of the proletariat. Because according to Joe Sims, who wants to live in a dictatorship? Again, this any Marxist that has just given the time to read the Communist Manifesto will understand the context behind that term, right? We're living in a dictatorship right now if you're living in a capitalist country. You're living under dictatorship of the bourgeoisie. Socialism is dictatorship of the proletariat. All it does, all this term means is an explanation for the class character of some society that's in question. So that's just a really ridiculous, immature thing to say. Then single party state, he doesn't like that. I mean, I guess he was a huge fan of Gorbachev when he overthrew the power of the Communist Party in the Soviet Union by introducing pluralism and then giving rise to the destruction of the USSR. I'm sure he thought that was great as well. Because I'm pretty sure he also doesn't think that that socialism's ever existed, right? One of these people who doesn't think that socialism can ever exist. Actually, that goes into the next thing that he says is one of the worst ideas that Marxism ever came up with. Developed socialism. Okay? Developed socialism. Synonymous with actually existing socialism, right? This is a term that Leonid Brezhnev came up with to kind of rhetorically smack around some of these leftists that were criticizing the Soviet Union more than they were even criticizing capitalist society, saying, hey, you should focus on organizing for a revolution in your countries. We have, our social system's not perfect, but it actually exists. But Sam rejects that socialism is even possible within, quote, the next 5,000 light years. Okay, he said that actual socialism is 5,000 light years away. Okay. Another thing that I personally take issue with, another thing he said, is that one of the worst ideas that socialism ever had was that art is a hammer with which we can shape reality. Obviously, Sims is some sort of fan of modern art, an idealist approach to art, if you will. Again, it's kind of like some hippie stuff. I don't know. And then the last one I had on this list that I needed to mention, is that he says that one of the worst ideas of Marxism is Marxism-Leninism. Okay? There you have it, comrades. There you go. That's the leader of the Communist Party of the United States of America. Says that Marxism-Leninism is one of the worst ideas that Marxism ever came up with. Okay? This is like clown world. It's like, where else in the world will you get someone who's the head of the Communist Party saying stuff like that? Except for, I guess in France, where the Communist Party has completely abandoned Marxism-Leninism publicly, and so they actually, get some seats in the parliament because they've essentially become a bourgeois party. But anyway, so I mentioned earlier that I was going to talk about this convention, CPUSA convention that took place recently, because it's connected to the current General Secretary, Joe Sims, and the sort of complete disregard he seems to have for democratic centralism and the internal party rules that existed in this party, that exist still in this party, right? Essentially cooed all that stuff at the last convention of the CPUSA, because it was specifically on the point of supporting the Democratic Party, because it's the Communist Party of the United States of America. It should not be supporting a bourgeois party, the Democratic Party. It's not any more progressive than the Republican Party. And this is something that obviously a lot of members took issue with. And a secret ballot vote was called. It was requested regarding these decisions, the decision to support the Democratic Party or not. And this is something that's guaranteed by the internal rules of the party. But this was rejected. This was rejected in complete contradiction to the charter of the party, and objections to this violation of the rules were completely ignored by the convention committee. Okay. If you want to learn more about this convention, I'm not going to focus that much on it here because I want to talk a bit about the American Communist Party and why it's important for American socialist revival. But if you want to learn more about that, MidWestern Marx did a live stream about it. It's like 1 hour and 40 minutes, so you should check it out there. Look it up. MidWestern Marx CPUSA convention. You can see more about that there. But this is just this sort of complete disregard for the rules, like blatant support for a bourgeois party. These are all just all things that have coalesced for such a long time in the Communist Party of the United States of America, and it's why so many members are so upset with the leadership. And why they've been upset with the leadership for so long. And why the CPUSA has gotten this reputation with so many people on the American left that actually know what they're talking about as a joke organization. You know, it's a joke organization of the American left. It's become that, unfortunately, because it's got such a rich, great history that had made it great in the past. But now people who are not ultra-leftists or out of their minds, I mean, you bring up the Communist Party USA, everyone's going to laugh. Unless there's some sort of older party member that's been a card-carrying member for the longest time, and, you know, that's the party they've dedicated their life to. That's a bit of a different story. But among young people, I mean, come on. And that's part of why I think we can say this, you know, we've got Sam Webb, Joe Sims. The leadership of this party is just part of an older, more like hippie-ish generation of leftists from the new left era that are like completely out of touch with the demands of the material conditions for organizing in the current world, first of all. And they're out of touch with what young radicals are thinking about, you know? True young radicals are not thinking about supporting the Democratic Party, okay? They're looking towards China. They're looking towards Russia. They're looking towards the DPRK. Especially China, looking at the immense accomplishments that the Chinese Communist Party has made over the years in lifting hundreds of millions of people out of poverty and building advanced infrastructure for people all around the country, in combating crime, in becoming the country that has real potential to become the biggest economy in the world, to outstretch the United States. And that was all done under a communist party. Americans are looking to that example. They're reading The Governance of China by Xi Jinping. They're looking at reliable information about the DPRK and seeing that the situation there right now completely contradicts the 20, 30-year-old propaganda that we're still being fed from the Western media, from the brainwashing that we have to go through, that everyone's starving there and everyone's living like absolute paupers. We know that is just not true to reality at all. Same thing with Russia. Although it's not a communist country, it's a country that is absolutely essential to the communist world as an economic partner, as a political ally. Hell, I mean, it's the only country that's actually decided, you know what, we are going to fight NATO. We're going to actively fight the West when they try to set up a proxy war in Ukraine. That means something, even though Russia's not a communist country, right? China's not doing that. North Korea's not doing that. I mean, North Korea's doing more because now they've got a mutual defense pact with Russia, you know, and that's obviously preceded probably a number of agreements and areas of cooperation in the military sphere that's going on right now between those two countries. But, you know, it's really Russia that's at the forefront of the they're at the spearhead of the fight against NATO in the West right now. And young American Marxists, young American communists are looking to them for inspiration. They're looking at these countries that were so long propagated to be the enemy of America. They were so long propagated to be hellhole countries, like Trump called them under his presidency, hellhole countries or shithole countries. China's supposed to be a poor shithole. Russia's supposed to be a poor shithole. North Korea is supposed to be a poor shithole. But these countries, American communists are seeing, are actually accomplishing such feats that seem incredible in the American context even. It's for American communists to have their party leadership saying that, oh, none of that is real socialism, that's all totalitarianism, it's even worse than what we have in the United States. For real American communists, and from specifically the younger generation, this just does not correspond to reality. It's absolute nonsense. And I live in Moscow. I've made the trip to the other side. I've traveled all across the multipolar world, to China, to North Korea, to the ex-Soviet sphere, all of these places. I could tell you with what I've witnessed from my very eyes, that this is this position of American Communist parties to denounce any sort of accomplishments that take place under actually existing socialism is a horrible position and has no correspondence with reality. And it also even plays into the hand of the capitalists who make the same argument specifically about China, that, oh, China's so successful because it's actually capitalism there. So that's, even though that's not the case, it's socialism with Chinese characteristics under the leadership of the Communist Party there. And to recognize that China is a socialist country under the leadership of the Communist Party is to recognize that the accomplishments they've made there are attributable not to a free market, not to a chamber of commerce, not to a group of capitalists that are exploiting the workers and soaking up their surplus value so they can go on fancy vacations and buy a 20th yacht. This is done under the direction of the Communist Party, and these economic accomplishments deserve to be recognized as carried out by that Communist Party. So this is what I mean by the fact that the Communist Party USA is just completely out of touch with the realities of today and what young communists around the world, and specifically in the West, are seeing with their very own eyes. So that's why this is the specific reason why the emergence of the American Communist Party is such a great development, because it's not led by some older generation 25-year card-carrying member of a party that hasn't gone anywhere. It's not led by people who are going to harass their rank and file to sell paper newspapers at the corner of some street where there's a competing Trotskyist organization across the street, and they're haggling people to buy newspapers for $2 to read the latest information about some inner party stuff that nobody cares about. This is an American Communist Party that's headed by people who understand their way around social media. They understand their way around, their own generation, and they're part of the working class, right? We've got this organization is headed by Haas from the Infrared Collective. Shout out to the Guerrillas, very cool organization. And he's the executive chairman of the organization. The Politburo is made of people, all young people from organizations like MidWestern Marx. Our organization, the Revolution Report, is supporting this party as a good development. Of course, we're a media organization, independent from any sort of political organization or anything like that. But we 100% entirely support the development of this new organization. Jackson Hinkle's also involved in it. And once this party launched and it was announced across social media, it immediately started gaining so much attention that it started trending on Twitter. Okay? This became a dream come true for a lot of Marxists in the United States and a nightmare for others, right? I mean, the minute, like I said at the beginning of this live stream, the minute you do something productive in the American left, you're going to get attacked. You're going to get attacked by people from all different parts of the degenerate left, left that doesn't do anything, left that's into identity politics, left that has some sort of protest factory gig going on somewhere in California. But this new party has a lot of potential. And so many people from the Communist Party USA left immediately and joined this American Communist Party. And not just from the Communist Party USA either, from a number of other socialist organizations that in the United States that have essentially not been doing anything productive and are led by some sort of decrepit people who have been in the leadership of these ineffective communist parties for the longest time. People have left all of these parties to come to the American Communist Party because they see a new possibility in it. They see young people, they see people with new ideas, they see people that have the right politics, that support the national liberation struggle in Gaza, despite whatever negative attention might come to them. They support Russia. They support China. They support North Korea, despite what all of these so-called influential leftists in the West say. Despite all they reject the sort of degeneracy that we see on the American left and in the West in general of just like thinking it's okay to base your whole identity around some weird sexual minority, some weird sexual identity connected to LGBT or connected to some sort of mental condition someone has. These are all strange differences that for some reason the American left, and I'm sure it's the case in other parts of the West as well, they've developed these sort of fixations on these small things that don't mean anything to anybody except for the people that are directly connected to whatever the fixation is about in terms of identity politics. This is a communist party that's focusing on the fact that we're all working class, and that's the commonality that we all share, that we can organize around. And that's exactly why the main people involved in it, Haas, Jackson Hinkle, MidWestern Marx, even as of recently, that's why they've been talking so much about MAGA communism. Because, I mean, there's been a lot of misinformation about what this means, right? And even from the beginning, I was not supportive of it. I thought, what the heck is this MAGA communism? But here at the Revolution Report, we've really looked into it. We've had discussions about it and everything. And it seems like the propaganda against it is just really not informed, because the point of MAGA communism is it's basically the identification of the fact that Trump was able to get so much support from the fact that he co-opted working class talking political points. And he promised that he was going to be different from the establishment of the Republican Party that relied entirely on donations from the huge corporations that control that political party, and those same corporations that essentially control pretty much all the candidates through the money elections that happen before the primaries, where the candidates get in a back room with the party's biggest donors, and the candidates essentially have to sell themselves before the primaries. They have to sell themselves to the donors so that they can get money for their campaigns. If they don't get that money, they're toast. It's not going to work. And only then do we see the emergence of candidates in the primary elections that people can actually vote for. So the choice is made before you even see any candidates coming out in the primaries. And this is something that Trump promised to stop, because he's a billionaire, right? He said he's going to fund his own campaign. To a lot of working class people, of course, also his rhetoric against the deep state, the fact that he was going to he said he was going to be friendly with Russia. And again, this is not a defense of Donald Trump. We're talking about his rhetoric here, why it was so popular, how he beat Hillary Clinton in this election when all the polls for the longest time were against Trump, and Trump won against many odds, to be honest. We're talking about his rhetoric. What was attractive to the American people? It was his working class oriented rhetoric. The fact that he said he was not going to take money from the capitalists that control the political parties in the country. He said he was going to not make enemies of the traditional enemy, which is Russia, of the United States capitalist class, the traditional enemy of the capitalist class in the United States. Of course, he did make enemies with China, and he tried to sponsor a government overthrow, a regime change operation in Venezuela, and he very tightly strengthened the blockade against Cuba and made conditions in Cuba very difficult for the people there. So again, not a defense of Trump's policy decisions after he got elected. It's about the rhetoric. And what that created was a movement of working class people that are looking for an alternative. And so the purpose of MAGA communism is to bring those people that have come into political life out of the recesses of the silent majority of the working class and bring them over to communism. Have them understand that the communist idea is not something foreign to them. It's not something that's going to bring them Chinese totalitarianism or take away their toothbrush or something like that. But it's something that is going to be in their best interest as workers in this country. It's going to put them in political power. It's going to give them complete power over the political system. And it's going to slam the deep state, as they call it. And it's going to overthrow the power of the capitalist class, which to them is the rule of the companies, the biggest corporations that fund these political parties and control the narrative, control the policies in a way that doesn't benefit working class people. And these people who voted for Trump, I would say the huge majority of them, at least understand that. They're not communists, but they're conscious of their working class interests. And those are the people that have to be reached out to. And the fact that is such a controversial thing on the left right now in the West is really shocking. It's like all these people who can cite Lenin word for word to make some sort of argument that nobody cares about. It's like as if they forgot to read the part where Lenin talked about about the fact that the most important trade unions for the Bolsheviks to reach out to were the right-wing ones, because those are the ones that need to be brought over to the side of the revolution and to the side of the Bolshevik party. The right-wing trade unions were the ones that needed to be organized in the most. Nobody really in the Western left remembers that when people talk about the idea of MAGA communism or reaching out to the right-wing elements of the working class, as opposed to rejecting them as just hopeless and complete enemies, right? The fact is that the working class is supposed to be the power base, the people, the allies of the Communist Party. And the point is to change their views, not to just completely write off a whole part of the working class population. That's not the point. And that's not what any successful Communist Party ever did anywhere in the world. So this is something that the American Communist Party understands. And I know Jackson Hinkle personally. I've spoken with Haas. We haven't met personally yet. Chris Halali, the international secretary for the American Communist Party, is a great friend and comrade of mine as well. He's in Moscow today, actually, for quite a few days at an academic conference. I was going to try to have him on this live stream, but unfortunately he's got plans. He's very busy, but we're definitely going to have him on a video call in the future to further discuss things connected to the American Communist Party, because it's a very good development in the United States, and we really like working with the other organizations that are involved with it. And it presents, like the title of this live stream explained, it's a rebirth of American socialism. For the first time since the fall of the Soviet Union, real communists in the West, in the United States, can breathe somewhat of a fresh air, knowing that there's something new on the table, that there's new possibilities, there's new opportunities for this party to grow into something great and really influence the political atmosphere in the United States, and even add updates to Marxist-Leninist theory, which has really needed updates for the longest time, since it really had become a dogma among many socialist groups since the fall of the Soviet Union. So, comrades, I really wanted to have this live stream. I really was excited about seeing this American Communist Party emerge. I was actually told about it in advance, but obviously we had to keep that as a secret until the actual release. But it's good to see it's released now. We're going to be working very closely with the comrades there and their respective organizations. We're going to be holding conferences like we've held, where we've posted some of the speeches on the Revolution Report. And I'm actually going to be in the United States for the next half a year. So I'm going to attend some of those conferences in person. And you'll be able to see me give some speeches. I don't think I've ever given a speech at the Revolution Report before, but we will put that up. Oh, well, I did give one at our conference, but I'm going to give some more at the upcoming conferences. I'm going to be working for the next half of a year quite closely with the comrades in the American Communist Party as well. So, comrades, thank you very much for watching. Before we go, I want to encourage you to join our Discord. It's a growing community of a lot of great comrades from all different parts of the world. We even have some, obviously, comrades participating there from the Infrared Collective as well, and MidWestern Marx, etc. So definitely join us there. It's a really good community. I'm active in it as well, so we can talk in the general chat. And also consider becoming a patron of the channel, because that really goes a long way to help us with the costs of running the website and doing these live streams and video production and everything. So we'd really appreciate it if you did that. Or you could just give super thanks in the chats on these live streams too. That also helps a lot as well. So comrades, I hope you liked the video. Shout out to everyone watching from the new ACP or organizations that are connected to it. We're really looking forward to working with you, comrades, and we think this is going to be a very bright future ahead for this organization. So without further ado, comrades, thanks again for watching, and workers of the world, unite.